Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great podcast where I bring people to you from different backgrounds and nationalities and expertise to listen and learn from. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another podcast of Talk2Rami. Today is Monday, and I'm sitting here with Paul O'Brien, is a dear friend and the CEO of the MediaTech Ventures and partner of the Founded House, Online Technologies, a startup veteran, investor, name it. He's been all over the place, great entrepreneur, and you can learn a lot from Paul. Paul, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. I love that distinction, startup veteran in particular, because, man, if you do this kind of work, it's definitely like taking some punches once in a while. Living through being an entrepreneur is a miraculous thing that many of us have been able to accomplish. It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Nice to see you. I mean, it's been so many years that, I've see you because of the COVID and everything else prior to that.
Right. Besides Austin has just grown like a weed. I got here a good decade after you, as I recall.
Yep.
And Austin was probably this big.
And you came from Michigan.
And when I got here, it was about this big, and now forget it. It's roughly
Michigan?
the size of Texas. I came from Michigan by way of, I grew up in Michigan, went to Arizona, went through Silicon Valley. I've kind of done the circular tour of the United States as I grew up until I found my home here in Texas.
When did you find out that you are a true hardcore entrepreneur?
Ooh, honestly, probably.
Or you just went through it?
No, that's really kind of an interesting and wonderful question, because I do think if I were to look back at my past and myself, I probably realized it as a kid. I'm a hardcore Lego geek.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And artist, and I love geek movies like Star Trek and Star Wars. And you put all those kind of things together. And someone who likes to build and be creative and write, and I studied music history. That I feel like those were all characteristics of what an entrepreneur embodies. And so it was in college. It was in college when I got stuck in. No, it wasn't in college. It was in high school when you get stuck in a very programmatic, designed curriculum meant to produce the ideal working professional, that I realized that I was not cut from the same cloth. And so I made my way through high school, and in college I found myself building websites because I looked at traditional career paths and thought, I do not see myself in this direction in any way that the university is trying to steer me. What on earth am I going to do?
Yep.
And I think that's what entrepreneurs think and go through.
Well, these days, as being an entrepreneur, I am an entrepreneur. I'm in the technologies, or I love technology. It's a very sexy word. And a lot of people, that being honest with you, they think they're a business owner, but they think they're an entrepreneur. But there's a big there's a big difference between those two, as you know it. If somebody comes to you and say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, Paul, what would you say? Because you get that a lot, I promise you.
Oh gosh, dozens.
Or I am an entrepreneur.
Dozens of times a day. Actually, Rami, that's that distinction you just made is what's important. Is the person coming to you saying, I would like to be an entrepreneur, or are they coming to you saying, I am an entrepreneur? And I think there's a subtle distinction in the way that people think about that question. That an entrepreneur is a personality trait. It's not a job. You can't get a college. That's not true. You can get a college degree in entrepreneurship, but there is no job title. There is no career path as an entrepreneur. It doesn't exist. And I think it's this enthusiasm and this excitement that people have for entrepreneurs has been encouraged and bolstered by society lately, thanks to movies and television shows and magazines, Wired magazine and Fast Company. Everybody wants to be on the cover of a magazine as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it's really sort of done society a disservice, because we can look at and study and know how to start a business.
Yep.
And that's a business owner. Entrepreneurs tend not to be able to work that way. Entrepreneurs tend to seek out problems and almost have this fixation with doing something about those problems, that they're not necessarily as easily guided to start something successful. Rather, they're the kind of people who tackle problems and take on risks and suffer all the ills and challenges that come with that personality. Suffer all of the financial struggles and opposition and criticism and judgment of why can't you just focus? Why can't you just just do what those customers want and make money? Well, that's not what an entrepreneur does. So they are different people, and I try to tell folks and write about and talk about that as much as I can, because I think we can do a great service to the economy by helping people better understand what kind of working professional they are, what kind of personality they have for this, whether or not they are an engineer or a business owner or a startup founder or an entrepreneur, or if they're just somebody who maybe is better working in startups or working for businesses.
But if somebody comes to you right now and say, hey, Paul, I'm a small business owner and I want to really quit my job, or I want to go be an entrepreneur, what kind of advice would you give that guy? Do
not quit your job.
That's what I hear all the time.
Do not quit your job. Put that on repeat, and during the commercial break, play it again. Do not quit your job. Truly, that some of the worst advice we see in the startup ecosystem is when people say we're gonna help
go
you
all in,
quit so you can be a startup founder. Are you crazy? No, you do not quit. You do not focus. You do not go full time. You do not go all in on a startup. Or as an entrepreneur. Why? Because the odds are so great that you're going to fail. Why on earth would you toss away some stability and some security and some income? And even income is an important piece of the puzzle to appreciate, because no investor in the world ever funds you to start something. They fund you once you've built something of value. And so how are you going to pay to get this new thing off the ground? You absolutely should continue working. Yes. Continue working and do it on the side. Build a bit of what you have in mind. Find some partners or co-founders. And when you get to the point that you can make the leap, that's when you quit.
Yeah, but the problem is, I have seen it many times, that the guy comes to me and said, hey, I want to really quit job. I told him the same thing. Don't quit your job. I said, just working, on the side, just start, chipping away and just working it. But the problem is, really, some people, they don't want to pay the price. Like, he comes home 8 to 5 to 6, 7 p.m. Just go and, eat, go walk the dog, talk to your wife, and then go to town after 9 to 1. You got so many hours, but you can't really both, have both. It's really, you got to pay that price. The difference between us, I think, is we went through that. I went up and down. I work on the side. I did this, but we paid the freaking price. It was tough, man. It was tough.
That too, Rami. That too is one of the best ways I've found to distinguish the people who are more likely to be successful from the people who are likely to struggle or indeed even just fail as an entrepreneur, as a startup founder. And it's that I don't perceive a difference between work and life. People, we talk about work-life balance.
Work-life balance, yeah.
I don't perceive a difference. I do what I love. But my job is part of my life. I don't see myself as having a 9 to 5, and at 5 o'clock I go home, because that's what we do in society, and I walk the dog and I play with the kids and I have dinner and then I go to bed. That my hobbies, my passion, my when I wake up in the morning, my brain is bubbling around with ideas for my next article to write about entrepreneurship. That the people who find success, and you could look at them, everyone. You could look at the really successful startup founders in the world. The Bill Gates and maybe a Warren Buffett, if that's the kind of direction you aspire to, or the founders of Bumble. That you can see how they live what they do. They're just constantly talking about it. There's no vacation time. There's no mornings and evenings that are breaks. That if you're fixated about something, if you're passionate about something, you're determined to fix it, whether it takes 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. You're likely to be successful. And if you think being a startup founder or an entrepreneur is a job, It's a 9 to 5, and you're going to get paid, and you're going to get paid well, and then you can go home and go on vacation. You're probably not going to be successful.
Yeah, I always tell these people having a job is totally different, because job is a job, you can scale it. And then when you can't scale it, then you don't have a startup. You don't have an idea. The idea's out there, but if you can't scale it, you can just constantly work on it and take it to the next level, as you said, with the help of others. If you can find a good co-founder, you're in financial, whatever technology you are, get a good co-founder that knows the freaking numbers, and then you can work with that founder, because you can't really do it all yourself. And you have to understand that in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve, you got to surround yourself with the people that they believe what you believe, as you said. And they understand that philosophy of entrepreneurship that we talk, even your loved ones.
Well, I could even maybe challenge, just thinking about your last point, whether or not they understand entrepreneurship isn't necessarily what's important, as is your first point, that it astounds me how many people want to start their own venture.
Yeah,
and they want to do it themselves. And I want, this is going to be my company and my startup, and that's mind-boggling, because trust me, you cannot survive doing this kind of work on your own. You don't have the skill set for it. You don't have the experience for it. You can't be a sales professional and an accounting professional and know how to build a website. And it's just inconceivable, yeah. Right? And so yes, the very first thing that we teach folks, the very first thing that we talk about is find partners, find a co-founder. And it's even a little mind-boggling how in many cities and many startup ecosystems, the advice given is poor. The advice given is poor, that you'll hear people tell would-be startup founders to focus on customers. Focus on customers first, focus on revenue first, focus on validation of your idea first. No. Find other people who want to do the same thing. Find people who validate what you have in mind simply because they agree. And they too will put the risk in to help you start something. Those co-founders. They may not be entrepreneurs, was my encouragement to think about whether or not they are. They may not be entrepreneurs because they may just be so passionate about the same problem or the same solution, yep, or so passionate about building something that maybe they end up being your head of technology or head of sales. They really do need to find themselves in a more distinct role, and they aren't as entrepreneurial. But when you find those people who are committed to what it is that you're committed to, you've got the start of something that is incredible and is likely to work. And
most of I'm sure you have seen some divorces between founders, a lot. And yeah, one of the divorce, like a partnership wise, like you say, hey, I was thinking this, you're thinking this, we're gonna go this way, you're gonna go that way. I seen it. The partners is split, and the venture is going to trash. The two leading causes of what are they? The two leading causes of startup failures. Number one, the absolute leading cause of startup failure is not doing marketing, which is a wonderful conversation in and of itself to have, because most people think marketing is advertising, and it's not. It's not. That startup founders don't do marketing. And there are then a host of reasons they failed. The second reason is what you're talking about. The second reason is the team, the co-founders, they may share a hope. They may share man, wouldn't it be great if we could build this? Or wouldn't it be great if we could make money on this? But they don't share a vision. They don't share values. They don't share a mission. And, if you think about it really like a marriage, you get divorced. You really think about it like a marriage. If you don't share the same commitment for life, you're probably going to split up at some point, and that's unfortunate. But you can't start a company with founders with unclear expectations of when you want to have kids and how you're going to pay for college. Yep. And, right? All of these things. What happens when one of you gets cancer? You really need to have that heartfelt conversation about life and the future. And if you can't or don't or won't, you're just a team, and maybe you'll be successful, but odds are you're gonna get in a startup divorce. Yeah, I had a partner that I said, hey, it's time for us to go to international. It's one of our service and products. And he said, no, we got to stay, just local and all that stuff, just inside the U.S. And I said, man, there's an opportunity out there. We can nail it. And we end up just splitting, and now we are very strong internationally. Like we did that. It was a totally different vision, how I see it and how he sees it. But it's just that different vision is very, very important. And then I want to go back and touch up the marketing. You just said it because I was talking to a founder, like a startup, and they didn't really know the value of marketing. And that was my argument. I said, if you have the best platform, if you have the best technology, but nobody knows about it, how are you going to scale that? How are you going to attract even investors?
What I love to share.
It's so important.
What I love to share, though, is the notion that still escapes way too many founders. We see a lot of founders that come into our programs, our incubators, and they have a product, they have an MVP, or they're certain of what they want it to be. I see too many founders that have been led to believe that you start with the product and you bring the product to market, and then you do the marketing. Right? Then you do the marketing to create awareness for it or demand for it or interest in it and what have you. And it's frustrating because that's backwards. That's backwards. That before you even incorporate a company, before you sign an agreement with a potential partner or co-founder, you should have done marketing. Marketing is studying the market. Marketing is knowing who the competitors are, who are the potential investors, knowing what's been tried in the past and failed, knowing what's been tried and worked. Marketing is understanding the different potential customers. Marketing is, it's in the freaking word. Marketing is the work of the market. And if you're going to invest in building anything, any product to bring to market, wouldn't you figure out what the market is first? and then do that. You're
absolutely right.
That subtle point of they come to you with the best product, but how's anybody going to love the best product if they're not aware of it? How do you know you have the best product if you haven't first done marketing? Right? You don't build a product without first validating and confirming and understanding whether or not what you build is in fact or could in fact be the best. And then you build it. You start with marketing is the point. And that's why it's the number one cause of startup failure. That when you look at the studies about startup failure, you see wrong product market fit, or misunderstood the customers, or didn't know where to find customers, or didn't know what kind of team we needed. Those are all market-based considerations, right? Competitors put you out of business. Those are all market-based considerations. And so none of those things should occur. None of those things should occur if you indeed do the work first to figure out who the customers might be, to figure out what's been done before, to figure out whether or not competitors are going to put you out of business, so that what you build actually has a chance of working. Actually then is not validating that somebody wants to buy it. It's really just validating that you were right.
And it still is a constant work. You have to constantly, you can't just do it. Oh, I did my market analysis. I did my market research. This is a good, I have my MVP and everything. Guys, we're going to go to market. It's a constant shoot, adjust. That a lot of, I think, the startups, they don't understand that you have to constantly doing it.
Yeah, and it's actually, that's where there's a great correlation or a better way to appreciate the point for those of your listeners who are operating businesses or in the small business space or in other industries like real estate or what have you, that as much is true of every business as it is startups. You see, for example, we use the restaurant industry as a good example of how to appreciate the challenge of starting a startup. And in the restaurant business, you've got chefs who are great cooks. You got people who are really, really passionate about opening restaurants. And yet they rarely do the marketing to figure out where should we open the restaurant, why should we open it there, what's it going to cost to open it there, how many people are we going to need on staff at that location, right? Is that location a good location? And And so what happens is you see an exceptionally high rate of restaurant failure.
Absolutely.
Failure. Not because the food is bad, which is what cooks and chefs tend to think, that it's all about the food. No, it's not all about the food.
It is not.
It's about the right location and the right experience, right? And the right P&L, profit and loss statements, the right financials. And so if you're not doing the marketing work in the restaurant business, you're likely to fail. Because then, to your point, Rami, then as you're open, maybe you run some Facebook ads and they don't work. Well, then what? Do you just give up, or do you try something else? No, then you try to get in the local paper. And then you try live music for a little bit and see if live music and some events at your restaurant work. You've got to keep trying because the market continues to change and continues to evolve. Then the economy goes bad. When the economy goes bad, then what do? You got to try something else to keep people coming back into the business. You not only have to start with marketing, but you're right. You constantly have to prioritize and focus on marketing, literally above everything else. And the companies and the businesses that do not are the companies and businesses that almost always are those that fail, period.
They don't do the marketing. I remember I was, restaurateur for so many years.
Yeah.
And I did, as going back to your restaurant consulting, I was a consultant for Jack in the Box. And then I always told these guys that, man, it's a couple of things, I had chefs that would come to me and said, my food is great. I want to open a restaurant and everything. Said, you think you are a great chef? That's good for you. But do you know marketing? Do you know how you're gonna run your labor? Do you know how you're gonna schedule? Do you know how this events is? You don't know, and you need a. I get a front house manager. I said that doesn't work. Man, the front house manager is not gonna do what you're trying to do. You need a good founder or somebody that knows operation. Yep. And if then vice versa. I had a guy. He was a great guy in the front, but he didn't know his food costs out back there. He didn't know his labor costs. And he said, I said, you have a tilapia sitting in your freaking walking cooler for like 2 weeks. Look at your POS. You sold last 2 months one. Why are you keeping it? It's just they don't get all that. It's exactly like a technology too. The guy is a programmer and he says, I want to program this. No, you need somebody that knows how to market that thing.
That's exactly right. That your chef, who is a great chef,
of course,
is that product person.
Yes,
is that product leader, and it's a wonderful product.
It's a wonderful.
But
product.
if it's in the wrong place, or it misunderstands what people want, you open a fish restaurant.
Yep.
With tilapia, but it's in the heart of a region of the city that is just looking for another burger joint or a diner. You're going to fail. It doesn't matter how good you're. And that's the importance of that distinction between starting with a product, starting with an MVP versus starting with marketing. That it's true of the chef. It's true of a residential real estate developer, right? If you put the wrong kind of house or too expensive a home or too inexpensive a home in the wrong place, in the wrong market, you're going to have a mismatch. That it's not as simple as standing up a product and then advertising and promoting it. That the market fit is the most important thing, and it's where you have to invest your time.
Okay, you have an average income, a household like $100,000. You're going to put $500,000 a house in that area. Of course, it's not. It's
going to sit there.
It's not going to work. But I think going back with all this stuff, the startup that you deal a lot with those people. I'm sure you heard a lot of pitches. You hear a lot of pitches when they come over there. What is the one mistake this all like a startup founders or the product people they make when they come to the pitches?
Ooh, the one mistake. Yeah,
like
gosh,
the big one, the big one, the one you said, oh, you should know that.
Here's the most frustrating one.
Yeah, the most
frustrating one is, and it's frustrating because it's astounding that we still hear founders who say, we don't have any competition, or what we're doing is unique, or what we're doing is original. It is
bullshit, guys.
It is absolutely never, ever, 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 ever true. and I could add more evers to that. I've even put challenges out there
really
on some big social media challenge sites where I've said if you can prove to me one company in the world ever that is completely original and unique, I will. I don't know what I'll do. I'd have to think. I'll slam my coffee at the moment, and no one can ever do it, right? No one can ever convince me of something that's truly original. And it's just frustrating because it's the first red flag, Rami, of what we were just talking about. It's the first red flag that, okay, you clearly haven't studied the market.
You didn't do your...
Because here's a whole bunch of stuff just off the top of my head that's similar to what you're doing. Those are competitors. And you're trying to pitch me that what you're doing is original and new? Bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that clearly you haven't done the marketing, and therefore, this is why it's frustrating, therefore I immediately know just on the 30 seconds that you've spoken to me, I know that you're going to fail. I know that you're going to waste a lot of time. I know that it's going to be frustrating for you. I know that you're going to get disappointed and angry with the advisor community and the venture capital community because we're all going to tell you stuff that you don't want to hear. You're going to be so fixated on the fact that what you're doing is brilliant and unique and original, but people don't understand. Well, you know why they don't understand? Because you're wrong. You're wrong. It's not original.
I hear this a lot too. I say, I ask them, why your product or software is different. I said, first of all, there's nothing out there like that. And after I find something like it and I show it to them and they say, oh, I have a better user interface. I said, are you serious? You have a better user interface and that's going to differentiate you. What is, as you said, what is that unique? What is that differentiation point that I switch from this software? Like you see so many internal communication platforms that's out there.
Sure.
From Slack, from this, from that. But what is going to make them unique that you're going to switch to another one? As you said, there's a lot of competition out there.
Mm-hmm. An endless amount of competition. And one of the best differentiators, since you pointed that out, one of the best differentiators, which is why the reason I wrestled with the biggest mistake that I see in pitches is because the second biggest mistake is the team, which we were just talking about, is that founders neglect to share their experience. Founders love to say, hey, I'm the CEO of such and such.
Yeah,
I don't care what your title is. Tell me what you've done in the past. Tell me why you're passionate about this. Tell me what experience you have with this. That's what matters. And then share with us the people that are involved, as we were talking about earlier on the show, the people that are involved as advisors or co-founders or what have you, that agree with you, that fill in the gaps in your own skill set, that pitches neglect to focus on that team first. And you see that, unfortunately, because a lot of pitch deck templates put the team at the end of the pitch. And it causes founders to think the team maybe isn't as important. Let me explain to you what I'm doing first. And then when I wrap up the pitch, I'll share with you who my team is. And that, too, is backwards in my mind, that the team is one of the most important things to talk about. You bring it all the way up to the front because it validates that you guys know what you're doing. It validates that you guys have some experience with this. It reassures your audience that you're probably not making things up, that you come from a place of knowledge. And so then the rest of your pitch comes across much more meaningfully because I'm more likely to listen to you and pay attention to you and care about what you have to say, given the fact that you come from this industry and you have experience with this industry and your team is experienced in what it is that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, if you give $1 million to these people, you want to know who you're spending on.
That they're not learning on the job.
Yeah,
that they're not taking your money to experiment with everything and figure it out as they go.
I had this is actually a true story. I had a guy came to me and said, I have a great idea. I said, what to do? He said, I would figure it out while I'm doing it. I said, and you're not going to raise money? Are you what? You're going to go to the guy and say, hey, I want to figure it out while I'm doing, and I know this is going to work. Come on. This is you hear so many stuff, man, especially since in the last 15 years, that especially in Austin, Austin is now they say in the second Silicon Valley, whatever they call it. You see a lot of startups coming here, and they all think that they're going to be the next Facebook. They're going to be the next Google. They're not going to be the next, Bumble. They're going to And the common characteristics they have is just that's misunderstanding, or they don't get the whole picture.
You observed a very valid point, which is that in the last 15 years there's been a lot more of that enthusiasm. And what's really interesting in the work that I do, or that we do in economic development, is helping cities understand that what happened in Silicon Valley was an anomaly. It was a unique point in human history when the internet emerged, and therefore the greater majority of people there had experience with building a website and how Google functions and what Facebook does and how it actually works and so forth. And that was a microcosm that will never be repeated. I think it's misleading to say Austin is the second Silicon Valley, or Miami might be the next one.
You never know.
Well, I think it's misleading because it's you can only have one moment in time where such transformative innovation occurs,
and then it's over. Yeah.
Well, it's not that it's over. It's that you can't replicate. You can't then do the same thing. You might have something different, but you can't have or do the same thing. That for about a 15-year window there, the majority of the experience in the world with the internet was in Northern California. It just was, right? And you had some anomalies like Spotify emerging in Europe and so forth, but for the most part, everything was built there. And so what's been happening since is actually exciting. What's been happening since is that the rest of the world is catching on, right? The rest of the world is catching up. People are starting to understand how Google works and how Wikipedia works and why Facebook does what Facebook does. And it's important that people understand that, because it's only then that you can start to build new innovations and new companies in different industries, in education or real estate or government, political tech, based on that understanding, right? You've got to know how all of this works in order to build upon it.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's misleading, or it's a little dangerous to say someplace might be the next Silicon Valley, because it won't be. It will be something else. It will be something new and better, different. In our work in media, we get to draw contrasts quite a bit to the arts, to films and music industry. And one of my favorite examples of the point that we're making is we can never replicate. We will never again have the Beatles.
You are absolutely right.
There was nothing like it before, and there can't be something like it since. There absolutely can be bigger artists, more successful artists who make more money. Of course, it can be. The market's bigger. But that was a unique point in history when culture and fashion and society and even just globalization, the British invasion, everything changed. In much the same way that you really can't have another Elvis. It can't happen. You can have other great artists, but you can't recreate that set of circumstances because they've already been done. And it's now time to move on to something else. That's what's exciting about Austin is Austin's better positioned for much more of what's next. Yep, of what's coming in innovation in society.
Where are you going in the next 5 to 10 years? What are the plans?
I'm very excited in MediaTech Ventures. We're very excited, frankly, about quite a bit of what we're talking about. How media and marketing are somewhat synonymous. That's evident in what we're doing here with your show.
Yeah,
right? We are marketing.
Yep.
Yes, we are marketing, y'all. We're creating awareness for some stuff, and we're talking to you and so forth. But how are we doing that? We're doing that through media.
Yes.
You've got a great crew of producers here and camera folks here and infrastructure here. That's converging. And as the world realizes that awareness of what's happening in Ukraine right now, or the innovation in Israel is astounding. By the way, Israel's just amazing when it comes to innovation, or the potential of Spain and Barcelona and what they're doing there, or what's going on in Singapore. As the world realizes that it's all dependent on this stuff, the voices and the text and the media and the video, as the world catches on and realizes that, innovation and our workforce and our economies are going to accelerate and thrive to a much greater degree. That's a fact. And that fact has been proven time and time again. It's why Silicon Valley did what Silicon Valley did. TechCrunch and VentureBeat. And they built all these media companies that caused awareness and excitement for what was going on there, creating demand for those changes. That's what's happening in the world. And so that's where we're going, is we're leaning in on cities throughout the world, not just Austin, but cities throughout the world like Chicago and even Houston, New York, to be sure. We're doing a lot with the UK in London and in Belgium, where people have a little bit more of an orientation to the arts and media. And that orientation to the arts and media is enabling those cities to more quickly and effectively and efficiently tell stories. Because it's the stories that matter. It's the stories that create interest in that part of the world and what's going on there. So follow the narratives. Follow the influencers, I suppose, right? Yeah. Where are they? What are they talking about? And don't follow them just because of who they are and what they're talking about. Recognize that the fact that there are people there that know how to do that drives the economy.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, I'm so happy that you guys are doing that, because bringing all these like a media and art together and then kind of, raising the bar and, and tell those stories. And a lot of them are unheard stories, like nobody talked about them, or maybe we have people that they want to tell these stories and we can't do it. But, merging this all together with the art, media, and community across the U.S., that's amazing. That's by itself is a huge project.
It's a huge project, but it's a project that I passionately believe society and culture can get behind, and hopefully our system of education gets behind. That a great many of us have been concerned with the enthusiasm and the encouragement to focus on what's called STEM education: science, technology, engineering, and math. STEM education. Concerned, most people hearing me might go, why on earth would we be concerned about that? Don't we need people to know math and engineering? Yes, we do, but let's finish the point. Concerned because AI, artificial intelligence, and robotics and machine learning, that we're actually coding software that can code, that replaces engineering jobs. That Jack Ma from China and Mark Cuban of broadcast.com and more recent popularity, they're cut from the same perspective that I am, that we have to teach the arts. We have to teach history. We have to continue to teach young people sports and competition, because we're going to create code. We're going to create robots. We're going to create artificial intelligence that automatically invents the next generation of technology, that does it without people.
Paul, I have so many questions to ask you and a lot of topics in my head, from the AI, from entrepreneurship, a startup, name it, but I know you have a limited time, but thanks for being here. Where my audience they can find you? I know you are very heavy on LinkedIn, and I love your articles and I read them all the time.
Thank you for that. LinkedIn is Twitter and Facebook and Reddit all rolled into one for professionals, and so honestly, everybody should be there heavily. That's a great place to connect, because we connect professionally. I'm pretty easy to find there, I hope, as just Paul O'Brien. MediaTech Ventures is a great place to connect with our work, with cities and startup programs, and if you're in media, for sure, we're always looking for more mentors and teachers and founders and partners to help run programs throughout the country and throughout the world. So check me out at Paul O'Brien on LinkedIn or Quora. We can answer some more questions there. I love that platform. Or at MediaTech Ventures. It's great seeing you, man. Cheers. Love the show.
Thank you so much for being here.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much.